Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our signing ceremony of the continuance of the MOU between the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, and the New Jersey Association of the NAACP. I want to welcome you. I want to say that this is a fantastic opportunity for us. And I want to turn it over to our chairperson, Ross Pearlson, for some quick remarks.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Ross Pearlson, and I'm proud to serve as ADL's, the chair of ADL's New Jersey Advisory Board. It's my honor and privilege to be with you all here today, especially during Black History Month, and introduce my friend and colleague, the Regional Director of ADL's New York and New Jersey region, Scott Richman, as we are here today to reaffirm ADL's historic partnership with the NAACP in New Jersey. Like me, Scott is a lawyer by training, but he left the law decades ago to follow his passions. And that led him to a series of positions with nonprofit Jewish organizations that focused on everything from humanitarian relief to interfaith relations to fighting against anti-Semitism. We are thrilled that he recently joined ADL and brought this wealth of experience and connections to our mission of fighting hate. Here in New Jersey, I have watched Scott hit the ground running over the last few months, and he's been doing everything at both the municipal and state level to advance New Jersey's anti-bias laws, to push for anti-bias education, and to secure a vocal statewide response against extremism. At this time when our nation is so divided and hate crimes are so prevalent, ADL's role is critical now more than ever. For more than 100 years, ADL has not only responded to anti-Semitism, but it has also harnessed Jewish values to ensure justice and fair treatment for all people, as it is part of ADL's mission. Scott Richman embodies all these values in his work as a regional director, and so it's with great pleasure that I introduce them to you today. Scott.
Thank you so much, Ross, and thank you so much for your leadership of our work in New Jersey. It's deeply valued. Good afternoon, everybody. I am so honored to represent ADL today at this historic event, and I'm really very humbled to be in the company of such distinguished civil rights leaders from the New Jersey NAACP. Our goal today is to reaffirm a partnership that began a little over a year ago, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, between ADL's New York, New Jersey Regional Office and the NAACP New Jersey State Conference. Our task from the very beginning was a simple one. It was for the two organizations to work together to combat racism and anti-Semitism here in New Jersey, and to speak out with a unified voice when incidents of hate and bias occur. That commitment has taken on new meaning this year. We are signing this agreement in the midst of a global pandemic that has had a devastating and disproportionate impact on communities of color in the United States, and on the heels of a violent insurrection at our nation's capital, where a broad coalition of right-wing extremists proudly donned racist and anti-Semitic attire and triumphantly marched a Confederate flag through the halls of Congress, and during the largest and most diverse civil and human rights movement in our nation's history. The Black Lives Matter movement, sparked by the George Floyd murder and countless other Black lives taken by police brutality and systemic racism in this country. We're also solidifying our partnership at a time when anti-Semitic incidents in our country are at record highs, and as the Jewish community continues to grapple with the anti-Semitic attacks in Poway, Jersey City, and Muncie, not to mention Pittsburgh the year before. In 2019, ADL recorded over 2,000 anti-Semitic incidents across the country, the highest number ever recorded since ADL began tracking this data in 1979, over 40 years ago. At the same time, after declining in 2018, religion-based hate crimes increased in 2019, with 63% of the total number of reported religion-based hate crimes directed at Jews and Jewish institutions, so the vast majority. 2019 was also the deadliest year on record in terms of hate crime murders, with 51 such incidents recorded, a 113% increase over the previous record set in 2018. As has been the case for decades, race-based hate crimes remain the most common type of hate crime in 2019, and anti-Black hate crimes comprise the plurality of these offenses, underscoring the importance of national action to counter systemic and pervasive anti-Black racism. The need for a renewed partnership is therefore particularly urgent, but it is also coming at a time when there is reason for hope and a unique opportunity for change. Just a few weeks ago, we all saw history being made in the White House as the first woman, the first Black American, and the first South Asian American, Kamala Harris, was sworn in as vice president. And in Georgia, with the first Jewish senator and the first African American senator being elected from that state. We also know that in this moment of national reckoning, ignited by the Black Lives Matter movement, we have a unique and urgent opportunity here in New Jersey to demand bold and transformative solutions from our elected leaders in order to begin to dismantle systemic racism and structural racism in our state. We are living in historic times, and this partnership, while predicated on our joint need to fight hate, is motivated by something much more positive. It's motivated by our common values and our common humanity and the unprecedented needs of this moment. This work is not new for ADL. It was what motivated our founders in 1913 to declare a mission of securing justice, not only for the Jewish people, but for all people. This was declared by an attorney from Chicago named Sigmund Livingston. Starting with a $200 budget and 2 desks in his law office, the Anti-Defamation League was founded with the clear understanding that the fight against one form of prejudice cannot succeed without battling prejudice in all its forms. In short, our founders recognized what is still true today, that racism and anti-Semitism are 2 forms of oppression that remain interconnected and self-reinforcing. The display of both at our nation's capital, for example, was not an accident, nor was it a coincidence. As our communities know too well, the goal of the January attack was not merely to assert political power and to overturn the result of the 2020 presidential election. For some, it was also to assert white power and to create fear in our communities. In order to truly eradicate racism and anti-Semitism, we must be willing to engage in meaningful dialogue about how these systems of oppression function and why they too often escalate at the same time. We must be willing to work together to dismantle the foundations of white supremacy as our common enemy. We must be willing to see and celebrate the exceptional diversity within the Black and Jewish communities, and to appreciate the unique ways in which anti-Semitism and racism affect Jews of color. And finally, we must be ready to call out and vehemently reject hatred and bigotry each and every time we see it. Let's declare today that we are stronger when we understand one another's history, when we understand one another's perspective, and when that allows us to stand together. A few weeks ago, ADL New York, New Jersey held a very special annual conference, which we've been holding for decades. It's called the STOP Conference. STOP stands for Students Together Opposing Prejudice. This year's conference was held during the week of MLK Day, and it was dedicated to the civil rights movement of the past, present, and future. Our fight continues, which was why we brought it to the students. One of our goals was to light an activist spark in young people by letting them know that the giants of the civil rights movement and those still leading the fight for racial justice today, people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, and Stacey Abrams, were once teenagers too, like them. Each had moments that led them to a life of activism, and we discussed those moments. These are conversations that we hope our partnership with the NAACP will continue to spark, not only with young people, but also with residents all across the state of New Jersey. This is because the fight against anti-Semitism and racism is not a fight that is just for the ADL, nor is it just for the New Jersey NAACP. It is a fight for people, all people of goodwill. ADL got into this fight because prejudice against any one community is tantamount to prejudice against all communities. Anti-Semitism and racism are canaries in the coal mine, and we must ensure that hate does not take root and spread. That is why we are so proud to sign this agreement. We were so proud to sign this agreement last year at this time. And unfortunately, the pandemic and upheavals of this past year kept us from achieving its full potential. Our gathering today is meant to reaffirm our commitment and to say that the state branches of ADL and the NAACP will launch a series of town halls and listening sessions throughout the state to increase dialogue and raise awareness among different New Jersey communities about the importance of working together to fight hate. The agreement also aims to increase reporting of hate crimes, harassment, and discrimination across the state, both online and off, working in coordination with federal and state leaders and the Attorney General's office. I want to express my deep appreciation to my ADL colleagues, New York, New Jersey Deputy Regional Director Alex Rosenberg, and Associate Regional Director Alana Berman for working so hard to get us to this important moment. And I also want to thank New Jersey NAACP President Richard Smith and New Jersey NAACP Communications Director Marcus Sibley for being such great partners throughout this process. The Jewish people often look to a series of books called the Mishnah for wisdom. This is a collection of rabbinic teachings from long ago. The Mishnah talks about the importance of repairing a broken world. In Hebrew, we call that tikkun olam. And it speaks of the part that we must all play in doing so. I greatly look forward to what our organizations can do together to help repair this broken world and to bring justice and fair treatment to all. Thank you so much for joining us today. And with that, I am so pleased to pass the virtual podium to Marcus Sibley, the New Jersey NAACP Communications, Press, and Publicity Chair, and the Southern Burlington County Branch President, to introduce the New Jersey NAACP President, my friend Richard Smith.
Thank you so much, Scott. It is an honor to be here today. It is my pleasure and my honor to introduce our state president, Richard T. Smith. I'm excited about this opportunity because we've been doing some great work. So we're very appreciative of the ADL for us having real conversations, difficult conversations, and then agreeing to have even more difficult conversations so that we can bridge our two communities. It's very important in an age where, since George Floyd, people are ready to see real work, and we're excited about the work that we're doing because we understand that symbolism can win the day, but the real work is how you bring in the community. So I'm very excited about our president, Richard Smith, who's also on the National NAACP Board of Directors. He's a progressive president. Everything we're doing is because he has the vision, and he puts us in a position that we can be trailblazers. So our president, not only has he been instrumental in this agreement here with the ADL, but he was instrumental in the Ban the Box, AKA Opportunity to Compete Act, which eliminated the checkbox on job applications. So people asking if one is a felon. By eliminating this question, it reduces discrimination in hiring practices and allowing those returning to society a fairer opportunity for employment. He was instrumental in the bail bonds reform, now based on assessment of whether or not one is endangered to the community rather than his or her ability to pay. He was also instrumental in the passage of the independent prosecutor bill, which now requires all police killings to be investigated by the Attorney General's office and nothing by their own department. Voting rights restoration. For those who may have been on parole or probation, may now again exercise their right to vote. This has effectively put 83,000 voters back on the rolls, and they bring us to today. His fight for marijuana reform in the state to make sure that it is just. Not only are we passing legislation that has disproportionately impacted Black people and people of color, but also making sure that those benefits come back to the community that's been harmed. So I am so grateful for Richard Smith for his ability to connect, and which actually helped form the United Black Agenda that's been responsible. That team, that collective, that coalition has been on the ground fighting to make sure all the things that I just listed were passed. We're grateful for this opportunity to work with the ADL, but none of that would be possible if we didn't have a progressive leader who understood that these partnerships are important. They can't just be symbolic, they have to be work. And a person that understands that our youth are important, and we have to put youth in a position where they can be leaders as well. So we have a tremendous president. We are absolutely grateful that we can have a person like Richard Smith on our team. And without further ado, I would like to introduce New Jersey State Conference NAACP President and National Board of Directors member, Richard T. Smith.
Thank you so much, Marcus. I appreciate your words and your leadership. To my Jewish brothers and sisters, I say shalom. To my Christian brothers and sisters, I say God bless you. I want to take this opportunity to say thanks so very much to Scott Richman, to Alana Berman, to Alexander Rosenberg, to Ross Pearlson, and to Senator Cory Booker for his leadership and for all of you being a part of this important event. I also want to recognize and thank my leadership from the NAACP New Jersey State Conference, my first vice president, who's Morgan, who I know is on the call, our political action chair, Richard Todd Edwards, our religious affairs chairperson, Ms. Diane Hawkins, and of course, our press and publicity chair, and he is also environmental justice chairman and president of the Southern Burlington branch of the NAACP, Mr. Marcus Sibley. All of this is being done by way of us being a team. And I just want to pay the utmost respect to all of the officers and executive committee of the New Jersey State Conference. I want to also send out, if I can, greetings to your former ADL leadership who began this journey with us last year, my dear friend, Evan Bernstein. So I bring you greetings from the NAACP National Board of Directors, where I have an honor to sit as one of the 64 members nationwide. And I bring you greetings from the NAACP New Jersey State Conference, where I serve as the State Conference President. I say without hesitation or fear of equivocation that there is no branding, none, more recognizable in the country when it comes to civil rights, social justice, and equal opportunity. None like the NAACP. For 112 years, we have been at the forefront in the fight for freedom, justice, and equality. Even in the midst of our challenges, in the midst of change, confronting a fractured and divided nation, we remain like no other, the NAACP. The mission of the NAACP is to secure political, educational, social, economic equality of rights in order to eliminate race-based discrimination and to ensure the health and well-being of all persons. Our vision is to ensure a society in which all individuals have equal rights without discrimination based on race. The NAACP fights racism wherever it rears its ugly head, even when it's within our own ranks. We will call out racism and antisemitism where we see it. Unfortunately, in this nation, hate is alive and it is well. The Southern Poverty Law Center reported that white nationalist groups have grown 55% during the Trump era, and a surging racist movement continues to be driven by a deep fear of demographic change. American racists have fretted over what they fear will be the loss of their place of dominance as its social composition changes. Killing Blacks in our churches, racist cops killing us on our streets, the killing of our Jewish brothers and sisters in their stores and in their synagogues, all motivated by the idea that white people are being replaced. Proud Boys, Aryan Brotherhood, Royal Army, Boogaloo Boys, Brotherhood of Clans, the KKK, Oath Keepers, QAnon, the list goes on and on. Hate is alive, and it is well. However, Dr. King reminds us that returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness, he said, to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. We will not allow anyone or anything to drive a wedge between our communities. Over the long haul of the years, we both have proven that we are too strong for that. Judaism teaches respect for the fundamental rights of others as each person's duty to God. What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. Your tradition is powerful and it is timely. American Jews have played a significant role in the founding and funding of some of the most important civil rights organizations, including the NAACP, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. In 1909, it was Henry Moskowitz who joined W.E.B. Du Bois and other civil rights leaders to found the NAACP. Kevin Kaplan, a vice chairman of the Union of American Hebrew Congregations, served as the national president of the NAACP from 1966 until 1975. During the civil rights movement, Jewish activists represented a disproportionate number of whites involved in the struggle. Jews made up half the young people who participated in the Mississippi Freedom Summer in 1964. Leaders of the Reform movement were arrested with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King in St. Augustine, Florida in 1964 after a challenge to racial segregation in public accommodations. Most famously, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel marched arm in arm with Dr. Martin Luther King in 1965, the March on Selma. So today, my brothers and sisters, today, let's re-embrace and revitalize that spirit of oneness and leave here today committed like never before to walk, march, and fight arm in arm as one. In the words of Henry Ford, he said, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. Again, Scott, my ADL family, all of you, my NAACP family, thank you so very, very much for allowing us this opportunity, for being here today for this very, very important event. God bless you.
Thank you so much for those very powerful and beautiful remarks. And now to the agreement. So last year, this agreement was signed, and maybe we can go to the actual agreement. Next slide. Yep. Okay. So there are actually 2 pages to the agreement, and I just want to highlight some pieces of it. Go back to the first page. So the agreement essentially talks about 3 areas of collaboration. And the first area is providing anti-bias education to elected officials and community leaders. ADL has training programs in this area, and together we're going to strive to deliver that. We've pivoted this year in a big way to be able to deliver that kind of training virtually, which was not a capacity that we had before the pandemic, and I'm pleased to say that we're certainly prepared to do that. Secondly, facilitating dialogue sessions between the African American and Jewish communities in New Jersey. And actually, we're going to kick that off. President Richard Smith and I will kick that off at the end of the month, at the end of Black History Month. I'm so pleased that we are sort of bookending Black History Month, first with this declaration, and at the end of the month, the 2 of us will be engaged in a dialogue about these issues and really model it for the New Jersey community, not just the African American and Jewish community, but really all New Jersey residents. And 3, release joint statements in response to instances of hate and bigotry in New Jersey. As you can imagine, standing up to hate, speaking out is critical, and speaking with one voice makes us so much more powerful and so much more impactful. So the next page. And then just some details on how we'll both be working together. And as you can see, it took effect last year and was in effect until January 31st, which is what has prompted us to decide to reaffirm this and to sign a new document. So with that, this is the document. I should point out, And I saw a question in the Q&A. Somebody asked what the changes were, and there are no changes. This agreement stands as is. It was powerful when it was created, and it continues to be equally as important. So the goal here is not to make any changes. The goal here is to reaffirm. So with that, I'm going to take my virtual pen and I'm going to make a virtual signature, and voila, we have a signature that is now in the Memorandum of Understanding, and I'm going to invite my good friend, President Richard Smith, to do the same. Voila. Great. Thank you very much. And we now have a very, very special treat. Senator Cory Booker, who wished that he could be with us today, but was not able to, has sent us video greetings. And I bring you Senator Cory Booker.
Senator Cory Booker, and I celebrate this moment. Two extraordinarily, urgently needed civil rights organizations, the NAACP and the ADL, from my region, New York and New Jersey, joining together, reaffirming their commitment with this 2-year extension. We are indeed in perilous times. We are seeing a rise in white nationalism, in white nationalist violence, and challenges facing the larger nation when it comes to securing and affirming civil rights and human rights, and doing the preciously valuable work of creating a more beloved community and a more beloved country. Thank you for your joined commitment. There is incredible power and strength when we come together and we stand together. As the old African saying says, when spider webs are united, they can tie up a lion. And so I am just celebrating today, grateful for you, and I am committed to do the work with you, to join in your efforts so that we can make a movement for justice continue in our era of American history. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Booker. And I do want to acknowledge that Assemblywoman Holly is with us from the New Jersey State Assembly. Also, Denalery Johnson-Faniel, our good friend from the Division of Civil Rights. And now we are ready for Q&A. Again, you can put your questions in the Q&A box. And well, so we had that question about what changes had been made, and again, it's being kept the same. I don't see any questions. Maybe give it a second in case there are. Okay, we do have a question. Why did this partnership start in 2020? And actually for this, I have a sense of the answer, but since I was not the person to sign this document and President Richard Smith was in 2020, I think I'm going to pass that to him to talk about what might have precipitated this in January 2020.
We had a situation occur where right within our own organization, we had someone who made anti-Semitic remarks. And ultimately, we had many conversations with community leaders, and of which was Brother Bernstein, who came to us from the ADL. And we were able to sit down and have some much needed conversations. We addressed those issues within the organization, but we felt that as the ADL and as the NAACP, as African Americans, as Jewish Americans, the time was now for us to come together and put together this Memorandum of Understanding. For too long, we had talked around each other, but not, as Marcus would say, actually sit down and make something that is on paper alive. The MOU is only as good as the paper it's written on. We must make that document live by way of our actions, having those tough conversations, those difficult conversations in regards to where our communities stand. We know that there are some issues, and we're going to need to be able to have the leadership necessary to work through those issues. So that was the impetus of us sitting down, putting together a formal document indicating that we were going to walk arm in arm and work together moving forward.
And of course, it came in the wake of the Jersey City shooting, which certainly rocked the every resident of New Jersey and well beyond, and that certainly shook everybody up, and it prompted people to want to come together and want to speak out, and that of course was the context, since it had just happened the month before. We have a question about the Amistad Law, and whether or not both organizations are going to be promoting that. So I don't know, President Smith, do you want to say anything about that?
I mean, that's one of the things that we can put on our agenda for the ADL to work arm in arm with us. I think that'll be a great issue, because it teaches our history. And both of our histories are so very, very important. But as you are fully aware, all across the state, when it comes to Black history, which is American history, our young people are not being taught. So the Amistad Law is so hugely important, and we're going to look forward to you, Scott, and the ADL working with us to ensure that every district in this state is doing what they're supposed to do by implementing that Amistad Law.
Yeah, and certainly part of that law is requiring all schools to teach African American history, which is of course so very important. We have a question: is there an opportunity for young leaders at both organizations, at the NAACP and at the ADL, to connect or participate in a listening session together? And maybe I'll start. Obviously, young leaders are very important to ADL. We have a New York, New Jersey Next Generation Board, and certainly every aspect of ADL will be involved and will be invited to participate in any of these listening sessions.
And we have, matter of fact, the national president for our Next Gen organization is here in New Jersey. Her name is Yolanda Melville. She is a member of our Atlantic City NAACP branch, and at the end of the day, we want young people to be involved. And I think that this will be a great opportunity for you to do that. And I know Yolanda will be eager to work with us on this as well.
Yeah, and Yolanda and I served on a panel recently together, and shout out to Yolanda, who it was great to partner with her on the Youth Bias Task Force, which is a major effort of the Office of Civil Rights of New Jersey to counter youth bias in the schools and elsewhere in New Jersey. We have another question. Can the ADL speak about their groundbreaking legislative efforts that are currently in the works? I don't know if that was a plant, but I certainly can. I presented testimony last week before the New Jersey State Assembly about hate crimes laws. So certainly New Jersey has hate crimes laws on the books, and very important ones, but we live in a new era, an era of cyber hate. And these are, this is an effort by the New Jersey State Assembly to update their laws so that it reflects what the time we're living in. It specifically refers to swatting and doxing. So doxing, as you may know, is calling out people who, for whatever reason, they're not happy with positions that they've taken, but it means putting their name, their address, maybe their employer, all kinds of personal information so that they can be attacked. And I'll add that Assemblywoman Holly is a co-sponsor of that bill, and certainly was in support of it when I presented testimony on that. We also have presented an extremism resolution, basically for the state of New Jersey and for various town councils to stand up and say we don't tolerate extremism and extremist views in our midst. Let me just see if there are any other questions. We have a question about our work in Philadelphia and our work with the Philadelphia Regional Office of ADL. So our office, ADL New York, New Jersey, covers most of the state of New Jersey, but the southern part is connected to the ADL office in Philadelphia. And here, a shout out to my colleague, the director, Shira Goodman, who's done extraordinary work with the NAACP in her region and in southern Jersey. We certainly work very closely with them, and they're a part of today's call.
If I can, I'd like to give a shout out to Assemblyman Holly as well. I want to thank him so very, very much for his leadership. One of our great young leaders in the State House who's proactive and is getting things done. And we look forward to continuing to work with him. Just want to welcome you to the call, Assemblyman, and again, say thank you for your leadership and all of your hard work. We at the NAACP truly appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. I'm just so stunned at this coming together. I mean, this is what we should be doing all across this nation. And it just warms my heart in the sense that the ADL and the NAACP, who I've worked so very closely with over the years on social justice issues, coming together on this and continuing this working relationship. I think now more than ever, everything that's going on in our country and in this state and even in our local neighborhoods, this is a prime example of organizations who are, you know, bounded in our communities, coming together. It's just very inspiring to hear this call and to see this MOU. And I'm looking forward to working with both organizations moving forward. You have my unwavering support. And if there's anything that I can do to continue the advocacy of our brothers and sisters, African Americans, Latinos, our Jewish brothers and sisters, I will be more than happy to assist and to partner in those efforts. So thank you all again for inviting me. And this is just a great day to see this. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Assemblyman Holly, for being on and for those very important words. Dr. Denali Johnson-Faniel, who I mentioned before, is with the New Jersey Division of Civil Rights and a good partner, a good friend, wants me to mention that they currently have an art project that they are engaged in, and they're looking for people who are 25 and under to submit a slogan, art, or video that somehow talks about fighting hate. We can, in our follow-up email, send around information related to that. And we have a question. Did I see another question come in? No. Okay, good. Oh, well, I did see another question. I thought I did. Do both organizations want to speak about their alliance in relation to the Stop Hate for Profit campaign? Good question. So maybe I will, I'll start that off and then turn it to President Smith. So ADL for years has been asking for social media to remove hate from their sites. While it's okay, of course, free speech is important, and it's okay to place thoughts and statements on social media. It's not okay to incite violence. It's not okay to slander. It's not okay to deny the Holocaust. And we've been asking for Facebook and Twitter and other social media sites to remove this content. This past summer, we banded together with the NAACP and other organizations like Color for Change to say enough is enough, and this is no longer acceptable. And what we did is we asked companies to join us, advertisers on these sites. And when we began, we didn't know how many companies would join. This was in the end of June. And we asked them to pause their advertising for the months of July and August. And by the end, we had over 1,200 companies that joined us. Very large companies, Pfizer and Starbucks and Adidas and Coca-Cola, who had said it's not acceptable to have hate on these sites. And then we continued that with Instagram. So Instagram is owned by Facebook. And there we asked celebrities to join us and pause their postings on Facebook, on Instagram for one day. Sacha Baron Cohen led that effort, and we ended up with an A-list of celebrities, Kim Kardashian, Justin Bieber, who all paused their advertising to say no more hate. And within a few weeks, policies were changed, and we've now seen so many of us the changes that have taken place over the course of the fall, and the call for many more changes. ADL's role and the NAACP and really the whole Stop Hate for Profit coalition that came together to demand this change has the job now of helping these companies enforce this, of holding them to it. It's not an easy prospect, but we've been diligent about it. And with that, maybe President Smith, you want to say a few words?
And I want to thank you, Scott, because Marcus and I, in the meetings that we've had over the past couple of weeks, you and I have discussed that and the importance of stopping it. You know, one of our items talks about the fact that we're going to offer anti-bias education to elected officials. I got one I know we can start with, and her name is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Just spreading bad information, just heartless. So, you know, this is very, very important. Social media can be a great asset to us, but also we have seen how angry people can get from participating in some of these theories that they put out. So again, it's a great tool, but it's one that we have to watch to make sure that it's not having adverse effects on our community.
Yeah, certainly ADL has spoken out against Marjorie Taylor Greene and her the new congressman from Georgia, who has spun conspiracy theories, some related to Jews, some not, but deeply offensive. And we've asked that she not be placed on important commissions. That obviously that debate is taking place right now in the Congress. We have a question. What is the goal of the conversation between the organizations at the end of February, and what are the hopes of what it could do for the communities? So maybe I'll ask you, President Smith, to start.
I think communication is key, and this is something that we've talked about over the past year now. It is so very, very important for us to sit down and have those difficult conversations Marcus, alluded to in his introduction. We have to have those conversations, and they're going to be uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, if we don't talk, if we don't communicate, and if we don't come solution-oriented, we'll remain where we are. But the key is for us to talk through those issues, find out how we can mend where we can, and the work that we have to do to get to where we ultimately want to be. But it's so very, very important for us to be able to sit down and have these open, frank conversations, because it's one thing for us to go in our silos, and NAACP can have meetings and ADL can have meetings, but if the ADL and the NAACP aren't communicating, then we're not making the necessary progress that we need to make. So we're looking forward to those dialogues. And when you go all around the state, you're going to hear there's different issues. Might be one issue in Bergen County, it might be another issue in Camden County, but we need to know what those issues are and how we can work through this which will ultimately put us in a better place.
And I would just add to that and say that two communities, as you say, perhaps are in silos, and understanding one another, understanding one another's perspective, understanding one another's narrative, understanding what we share in common, which of course we share so much in common, but we're not the same. And anti-Semitism and racism against the Black community is not the same. Systemic racism does not present itself in the same way as anti-Semitism does. And I think there's a lot of nuance here that through a shared understanding of one another's experiences, one another's current situation, one another's concerns, we can build a common understanding and move forward to resolve how we can work together to fight hate. So, I mean, the overall goal of all of this is to work together to fight hate, but these conversations are meant to really build understanding and build perspective within the communities, and really to be role models, I would say. So we're there having this conversation as leaders, representing our two communities, but we of course hope that it will spark many, many more conversations within our communities and go much beyond just the event at the end of Black History Month. I do not see that there are any further questions. So going once, going twice, going three times. If there are no further questions, I'm going to turn it back to our wonderful masters of ceremony, MCs, Marcus and Alex.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Just want to reiterate how grateful we are for your attendance, for the dissemination of the messages that you've heard here today. And we hope that you will join us at the end of the month, and we will start promoting the conversation pretty soon, so that we can continue not only this dialogue, but our joint work. And with that, I'll turn it over to Marcus.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I just wanted to say that we understand that there may be skepticism. There has to be. There's history on both sides. And that's why this is so important. We want us to come together. We need to have these important conversations, because the reality is, as we've spoken about, Scott and I and President Smith and Alex and Alana and everyone else, anytime there's hateful acts going on, the same people who hate us hate you too. So if we share a common enemy, we should be coming together to fight said common enemy. So I think it's very important that we have these conversations. And then from the conversations, we go into real work. And that's why I want to absolutely applaud the legislative work that the ADL is doing, and that the NAACP soon will be joining and putting our name on as well, because this is how you fight a beast. You chip away little by little. You take away their opportunities to do hateful things. So again, I'm grateful. As I look through the chat, we have a lot of NAACP leaders on. We're grateful for the leaders that we have all throughout the state that are putting in the work. And we're grateful for having a president who's forward thinking. Like, I can't stress that enough. You can't get anywhere unless you have leadership that allows you to make certain advances and certain steps. So we're grateful for our president. We're absolutely grateful for the leadership of the ADL, who are like, I can't wait for people to really see what the ADL is doing. Like, they're not playing around. Like, they're coming at hate full force, and we're all for it. We're here for it. So great job. We look forward to putting in the work. And again, this MOU is just a piece of paper unless we actually come together and actually stand up for one another. So anytime something happens, it's important for us to be supportive of one another, not just when it's beneficial, but just to show support in general. That's how a partnership should work. And I'm confident that our current leadership they do that already. So without a piece of paper, we already have people who understand how important those friendships and those relationships are. So thank you. Let's get forward. Let's get to work. And I'm looking forward to the amazing things that's going to come out of this partnership. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everybody. With that, we conclude this conference.